Thank you guys for coming. So if you don't know why you're here, it's because this is a panel of representatives that we're really fortunate to have, and they're coming from 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, Southeastern Tech, and the National Guard to talk to you guys about what your plans are and what they're looking for after you graduate, what they need for you guys to do to enter any of these organizations during your senior year. You have some things to do that are coming up. And it feels like it's a lifetime away, but it's really around the corner. So they're going to give you some really helpful information about finding the right fit for colleges, college essay, extracurricular activities, financial aid, a lot of different topics that are going to be really helpful. So please give them your full attention. And it's really from here on out, we're going to be doing a lot of college and post-secondary stuff to help you guys prepare for when you graduate, okay? When you leave here, we want to make sure you all are comfortable and have a plan and know what you're doing and feel comfortable with your decisions. So let's welcome your panel. They're going to speak to you. We're here till the end of the day, okay? So let's welcome Caitlin Havener. She's from Nichols College. She's going to talk to you guys about finding the right fit.
Okay. Hi, guys. Thanks. Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. Thanks for the warm welcome. I'm Caitlin Havener. I'm our assistant director over at Nichols College. Show of hands if you've heard of Nichols College. Okay, good chunk of you. Awesome. We're located in central Massachusetts, right about 20 minutes south of Worcester, almost as if you're headed towards Connecticut. That's the best way for me to describe it to you. So my goal for my portion before we pass it along down the line is to talk to you about different types of schools in terms of safety, match, or reach school. So raise your hand if you've heard these terms before. Okay, awesome. So safety school is a school where the overall student profile is typically a little bit lower than your current student profile, meaning you have potentially a little bit higher grades, a little bit higher overall profile than the standard student that is going to that institution. It's a safe assumption that you could likely be accepted if your academics are a little bit higher than what they're looking for. A match school is where you align with the school's student profile almost to a T, that most of the areas of the admissions criteria match who you are. This is especially important and prevalent when you're thinking about things like your GPA or your standardized test scores. And reach schools are where your current credentials are below the college's higher standard for admission. So you don't quite meet the threshold of what is typically accepted at those schools. For these schools, what I recommend for you to do is do as much as you can to make yourself stand out, because if your grades or your standardized test scores or your overall academic profile or the rigor of courses you're taking are not necessarily what is typically accepted, it's really important that you find other ways to show a holistic approach of who you are as an applicant. So by doing things like an interview or including some more information in the additional information section of your application is a really great way where you could potentially still be admitted to those reach schools. You should obviously apply to a handful of everything. You know, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't apply to just safety schools. Don't apply to just reach schools or just schools where you think you're going to get in. At the end of the day, most admissions offices are looking for a lot of different factors, and it's tough to say just by taking a look at a college's website, am I definitely going to get into this institution? So I recommend kind of hand selecting a bunch of, from each. Safety, match, and reach schools should still have all the offerings that you're looking for academically, though. You should not just apply to a safety school because you know you're going to get in. You should apply to a safety school because they still have options that you're interested in, or they still have majors or things that could be of excitement or are really interesting to you, both academically, socially, athletically, so many different factors that go into that. And just because that maybe you got into these safety schools or you got into a school that you didn't do too much research on doesn't necessarily mean it's the right fit. You really want to make sure you keep visiting the school and to try to get as much information you can to make a really good, well-informed decision. Oftentimes, I always recommend taking a look at a college's acceptance rate. That can also help you determine, okay, I'm applying to this school and roughly X percentage of applicants also get into this institution, which would either increase or decrease my likeliness of getting into this school. You can honestly do that by Googling. That's probably the easiest way to do it, but you can also check on colleges' websites. Oftentimes they're posted, or you can use companies or websites like Niche or US News World and Report, and oftentimes at each year they're gonna update that information based on the incoming class. So I hope this information was helpful. Did you guys get? Get all that? All right, awesome. I'll pass it down.
Next, we have Paula Font. She's from Massasoit, and she's going to talk about the Mass Transfer Program.
Good afternoon, everyone. You guys awake? Good afternoon, everyone. Awesome, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm from Massasoit Community College, but I'm here to talk to you guys about the community college system into a mass transfer program. So as she mentioned about the safety school, a lot of students pick a community college for their safety schools because they know they're going to get in, right? But they don't think that they're going to go there. They just use it as a safety school. But a lot of reasons why the students attend a community college rather than their reach school, even though they got into their reach school, is to save money. How many of you guys like to save money? Everybody. How many of you guys like free money? Oh, yeah. All hands should go up, right? So the mass transfer program, if you haven't heard of it yet, it's if you're entering a community college, so any community college in Massachusetts, and you're going into a community college and you're going to think about, I want to transfer after I leave here, and I want to go to one of the state schools or one of the UMass systems in Massachusetts. You could start off at a community college and find a major that's right for you, and make sure that you have the major that's a transfer option. For example, at Massasoit, we have business as a major, but there's a general business, there's accounting, hospitality management, then there's a business transfer option. So if you want to do accounting and you're speaking with an admissions counsel, we would tell you if you're thinking of transfer to a four-year school after you leave here, you want to go into the transfer option. So any community college you attend, you want to make sure there's a transfer option for you to be involved in the mass transfer. So to participate in mass transfer, you start off by applying to the school, so one of the community colleges, and for East Bridgewater, your community college would be Massasoit, so right here in your backyard. You would start off at Massasoit, and then you would find your program that you're interested in, make sure it's a transfer option, so that way you can get the benefits of mass transfer. So what that means for you is that once you attend Massasoit and you're taking your courses, there's different ways of transferring. You can transfer before you graduate and save money still doing it that way, or after you graduate. But really, to get the benefit of mass transfer is after you graduate. So you attend Massasoit, you do 2 years at Massasoit, 2.5 years, and you graduate with a 2.0. What that means for you is that you would apply to one of the state schools, so Bridgewater State, Framingham State, Westfield State, Worcester State, Mass Maritime, Mass College of Arts, or any of the UMass systems like Amherst, Lowell, Dartmouth, Boston, any of those schools, and you apply with a 2.0, you won't have to do an application, you won't pay an application fee, and you won't have to do an essay to get into their school with a 2.0 from Massasoit. Now, if you go into a 2.5, that means that you would get no application fee, no essay, and you also get guaranteed transfer of credits. So your credits that you received at Massasoit will transfer to the state school or the UMass system. With a 2.5, you get guaranteed transfer of credits and guaranteed admissions, depending on your program. So you want to make sure that you find out what the GPA requirement is for your program when you get to your four-year school, because you'll get, again, the no application fee, no essay, guaranteed transfer of credits, and guaranteed admissions, depending on your program, with a 2.5. A 3.0 is what I talked about, free money. So if you have a 3.0 and you leave Massasoit and transfer to one of the state schools or the UMass system, you'll get all of the above that I just mentioned. Again, no essay, no application fee. You won't have to, you'll get guaranteed transfer of credits. You get guaranteed admissions, again, depending on your program. And then also tuition waiver. So you won't pay tuition when you get to your four-year school with a 3.0. Now that means you have to maintain that 3.0 for you to continue to get tuition waiver at your four-year school. Also, we have Commonwealth Commitment. So Commonwealth Commitment is part of mass transfer as well, but it's if you know for sure where you want to go after you leave your community college. So if you attend Massasoit, for example, and you know I want to go to UMass Boston or UMass Lowell, and I know for sure that's where I want to go. You start off in the Commonwealth Commitment. So you have to let us know before you reach 15 credits. So typically after your first semester. Students start off maybe taking 12 credits or 15 credits in the first semester. And then after that, you want to make sure you let us know that you are interested in Commonwealth Commitment. So what that means for you is there's even more savings. You start off in Commonwealth Commitment, you know you're committed to going to UMass Boston, and you're in the program for business. So you're going to be in business, you're going to start off at Massasoit, you're going to do your 2 years. You have to maintain a full-time status, so you have to go full-time the whole entire time. You have to finish your program in 2 to 2.5 years. Also, you have to maintain a 3.0 GPA. because the benefits of that is that you get 100% tuition waiver when you get to your four-year school. You also get a 10% rebate every semester you finish successfully with a 3.0. So you get 10% of tuition and fees. That's an additional saving, again, free money. And then also, when you get to your four-year school, you have a tuition and fee freeze. So whenever you started the program, whatever the cost was at the time at that institution, when you get to that institution, it will be, you'll pay whatever it was 2 years when you started the program. So if the price goes up in 2 years, then you are going to pay what it was when you first started the Commonwealth Commitment Program. Again, you have to be committed to the school, and it's almost like a binding contract that you have to go to that school. Life happens, things happen, so if there was something that changed your mind, you can work around that. You can talk to the advisor and things like that, but they really want you to be committed to what school you're going to and what program so you can continue getting those benefits. So that's another way to save money. And again, a lot of students attend Massasoit, they have a great GPA, they get in, and mostly everybody gets in, but you don't have to have a certain GPA to get to Massasoit. Once you're here, you have to maintain a GPA to get to your four-year school, so it's very important to keep the GPA up. If you have a great GPA and you attend Massasoit, a lot of times, again, people are coming to save money because they can take the same courses for half the price at their four-year school, and then attend the four-year school and either live on campus or just continue commuting. But they will have a lot less debt when they leave their four-year school. So that's what a community college is mostly about. And again, knowing that you have that mass transfer option. So we have the mass transfer Commonwealth commitment, and again, with Commonwealth commitment, you get everything as a mass transfer student, so that way you can save as much as you could if you were going to a four-year school. UMass system and the state schools are already affordable, but you can pay half the price going to a community college. So that's my spiel for today.
Thank you. Next, we have Daisy Agonato. She's coming from UMass Lowell, and she's going to talk to us about the UMass system.
Hey guys, again, I am talking about the UMass system. How many of you knew that there were 5 schools within the UMass system? Yeah, very few people. So the way the UMass system works, there is UMass Amherst, which is the flagship school. We all know Amherst. I'm sure you've heard about it. Then there's UMass Lowell. I'm going by size, not by preference. Then there's UMass Lowell is the next largest school, UMass Boston quickly after, UMass Dartmouth, and then there's UMass Medical in Worcester. So that is for students interested in postgraduate work in medicine. So if you want to become a doctor, that would be a really fantastic school to apply to. I can't say that you'll guaranteed get into it, but it's a really great school to go and get your MD. So how many of you knew that every single UMass school was absolutely completely different and barely has anything similar? Yes, very few of you as well. So a lot of people assume that the UMass schools, because they're within the same system, have the same way of getting in, or that they're pretty much the same school with just different locations. That's incredibly, it's not the way that works, unfortunately, but fortunately at the same time, because you have a lot of different variety. Some of the schools have similar programs, but some are more well known for other programs. UMass Amherst, for instance, has the Eisenberg School of Business. It's an internationally renowned business school. They're really well known for it, but they also started as a school for agriculture, so that's something that a lot of students will get into, agriculture or environmental. UMass Lowell is well known for engineering, as well as fine arts and education. We've been around since the early 1800s with those programs. UMass Boston with health sciences, UMass Dartmouth with marine sciences. So they all have something that makes their school special. So even while you're looking at the different schools, really check to see, well, I know this school has this program, but is it exactly what I'm looking for? Sometimes you'll be really lucky and they'll have the same program at all 4 schools, which gives you a lot more opportunity to apply to those different schools. For a couple of other differences, athletics. How many of you know how many UMass schools are Division I? Anyone? 2, exactly. UMass Amherst and UMass Lowell. We're very fortunate to be a Division I school. The other 2 are Division III. So if you're interested in playing Division I sports, then you might think, okay, UMass Amherst and UMass Lowell have the sports I'm looking for. Let me start reaching out to the coaches there. If you really don't care about placing in Division I and you're fine playing Division III, then the other 2 schools are really great. I just want to say that we have a better hockey team than Amherst does, as we proved again this year. Just really throwing that out there real quick. Even though they're number 2, I'm just saying we did beat them. Okay, just a little shade, it happens. Thanks. So with that being said, how to get into the universities. Those are even different. Those are different as well because we have different admissions teams, but we are looking at very similar standards. So we have to go by what the Department of Higher Education puts out, which means that we need 4 years of English from all high schools, 4 years of mathematics, 3 years of lab sciences, 2 years of social sciences. One of those has to be a U.S. history. So if you haven't taken U.S. history yet, go look into that. 2 years of a foreign language. Of the same foreign language, so keep that in mind. If you switch languages a lot, try to get those 2 years in whatever course it is that you're doing, and then 2 years of electives. We do look at the other courses as well, and a lot of us will add those extra electives and things like that in there. If you took 5 years of sciences, 6 years of six courses in math, we'll make sure to have all of that in there, but those are the bare minimum standards that we are looking at. When it comes to applying, there is different rigor for which UMass school you're going to apply to. For instance, UMass Amherst, I think their average GPA is around a 3.8 and above, and then UMass Lowell is around a 3.6. Boston, I want to say, is around a 3.5, 3.4, and then Dartmouth around a 3.3, 3.4. They're kind of evenly matched. So if, again, when it comes to like the safety, reach, and meet schools, you even have that within the UMass system as well. So really look into those standards and see where you fit, so you can see how to apply to those different schools. In addition to that, some of the schools are test optional while some are not. So UMass Amherst is not test optional, so that means they are looking at your test scores, your standardized testing, ACT or SAT. But Lowell is completely test optional for all majors. I believe Boston is as well, and Dartmouth is test optional for select majors. So when you're thinking about how to apply, look into their website, see what majors are test optional, if they have test optional at all, reach out to the counselors and get to talk to them a little bit more to find out more about their programs. In addition to that, just everyone's on the common application, so you can submit through the common application. I believe most of us prefer it due to the fact that our applications, they're great, but they really only ask the bare minimum. The common app really does get a lot more information about what, extracurricular activities you did, what you do at home, what you do outside of school. We really want to know a lot more about that, whether or not your family is alum. I know a lot of you probably have family members that are probably alum within the UMass system. So put that down as well, because for some of us, there are alum scholarships. So if your family members are alumni, you can list that, and then you can get a scholarship just for them having gone to school before. One thing I always tell students to do is tour all of the UMass schools if you're planning on going to them. I know Amherst is a far drive out there, but absolutely go out there if you can, especially in the summertime. Come visit Lowell, say hi. I'm the counselor who reads your applications as well, so you can always drop me a note. But it's always good to get to know the different schools, see what their campus is like. Each of us are doing different renovations and changing our university. Boston, fortunately, just got housing for the first time this past year. It is open to freshmen, so that's a big change from previous years. Dartmouth, Amherst, and Lowell all have housing as well, so check out the campuses. You'll see that each of them are even just different in location, where Lowell and Boston are both in cities. Dartmouth and Amherst are in more rural areas. If you really like the beach, going to Dartmouth might seem like a really great idea. If you really like, Amherst has squirrels. They have these really cool squirrels, actually. They're like, I can't remember, they're like black squirrels. It's really fascinating, actually. But if you enjoy going hiking and going out into the mountains and things like that, just quiet rural areas, UMass Amherst is a fantastic place to go. I got to go there for a week last year, and I really enjoyed it. And they also have the best food in all colleges, so that's a huge boon. So if you really like trying out different foods, UMass Amherst is really top for that. But if you really like being in the city and being around other people from different walks of life, Lowell and Boston definitely have those opportunities for you. They're all on main subway lines, Lowell especially, so you can just take the train, go right into Boston, and really just kind of experience that. So that's all I have to say about the UMass schools.
Next, we have Heather Mello. She's from Stonehill. She's going to talk about selective admissions.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here. So again, I'm from Stonehill College. We're just about 20 minutes away. Perhaps some of you have heard of us. As I discuss selective admission with you, I'll probably end up reiterating some of the points that my colleagues up here have already made, which are really tremendous. But essentially, a school selectivity is based on or determined by the percentage of students that they accept out of the number of applications that they receive. So the fewer students that a school admits, the more selective they're considered to be. Institutions can vary widely in how selective they are, from community colleges, which may accept most or at least the majority of the applicants that they're getting, all the way to Ivy League institutions, which we often think is being the most selective and the most competitive to get into. And then within that range, there's a whole host of other schools that fall somewhere else along the spectrum. So to Caitlin's point earlier, as you're considering where you want to apply, where you want to attend, acceptance rate is definitely a critical factor that you want to keep your eye on, and what the school's criteria is for acceptance to make sure that you are applying to places that are within your range. Going back to that point of the match, a school that is a great fit for you, that safety, a school where you feel confident you're going to get admitted, and then maybe a reach, which is maybe one of the more selective institutions where you feel like you have a shot, but you know it's going to be a little bit of a stretch. So I think that's definitely a valid point that you really need to seriously consider as you're taking the time to complete your application and putting all that work into it. You want to make sure that you'll end up somewhere where you have a great shot of being accepted and having a chance to enroll at that institution. So selective institutions, because they tend to be more competitive, are looking for certain things that you want to pay careful attention to. Obviously, you need to have really strong academic performance. And this is not just the work you're doing right now, it's the work you've done starting freshman year all the way through the end of your senior year. You need to make sure that your academics are a main focus for you and that you're really doing your best in the classroom. Because again, the more competitive that it is, the more strong applicants that an institution will have to choose from. And so you really need to set yourself apart in that group by performing well academically. So that's definitely baseline criteria that the school is going to be looking at. Not just your GPA. Obviously, your GPA is really important. You need to be earning strong grades, but it's also the curriculum that you're taking. So what types of courses are you choosing to engage in? Are you taking honors courses? Are you taking AP courses? You want to think about the level of rigor and challenge that you're including in your curriculum, because that is going to be something that selective institutions are strongly considering and they're strongly looking for. They don't want to just see good grades. They want to see that while you've earned those good grades, you've also pushed yourself at a really top level. So being in your junior year, maybe your schedule is more complete right now, but bless you. As you think ahead to your senior year and think about putting together your schedule, you don't want to give in to the senior slide or taking a step back. You really want to push yourself forward and push yourself even harder, and come up with a schedule that is going to be the best fit for you, one that challenges you appropriately. You, of course, want to be careful not to make the mistake to over-challenge yourself to the point where maybe you can't handle taking an AP course in every single subject area and then your GPA declines. You always want to be thinking about both, but taking that next step to really push yourself to take those challenging classes and do your best work is really going to be critical if you're thinking about applying to some selective institutions. So everything in the classroom is very important. It's also your progression. So you could have two students who apply to an institution with the same exact GPA and maybe the same exact curriculum even, but perhaps one is achieving more strongly as they go forward and step into their senior year, whereas the other maybe started out strong in their freshman year and now aren't doing so well. So even though on paper, at the end, those students might look exactly the same in terms of numbers, schools are also going to look at the progression of your work and how you're moving forward, knowing that the work you're doing in your junior and senior year is what you're most likely to continue as you take that next step into college. So all very important factors. Then, of course, outside of the classroom, schools want to see that you're engaged, you're involved. You want to do things because you love doing them, because you're authentically passionate about doing them. Schools are trying to get a sense of who you are as a person, not just as an applicant, and we want to know what things you care about and how you might be likely to contribute when you step foot on our campuses. So the more authentic and genuine you are in conveying that information to us, the more likely it is that you'll find a place that is a great fit for you. But definitely being engaged and involved outside of the classroom is a critical factor, because schools are not just forming an academic class, they're also shaping a community, and they want to have a really strong community full of different kinds of people who can push and challenge and learn from each other. If you have sort of a distinctive interest or passion or something unique that sets you apart, you definitely definitely want to include that in your application as well, as that's something that schools will be looking for. And then I think the final point I would make would be test scores. Some institutions are test optional, some require tests. Certainly at highly selective institutions, oftentimes tests will be required, and that could be not just the SAT or the ACT, that could even be subject tests. So you want to pay close attention to what those requirements are. And if tests are required, of course, make sure you're taking those tests and submitting them and doing well. Or if the school is test optional, then obviously that's not a requirement for you, but you just want to make sure you know what those criteria are so you can submit your application appropriately and set yourself up. But definitely important to be familiar with all of the schools that you're applying to. Again, what factors they're specifically looking for. If there's an opportunity to demonstrate engagement, to reach out to your admission counselor or person at that school or visit campus, those are all steps that you definitely want to be taking to set yourself up for success. Thank you.
Next, we have Emily Stanley. She's from LaSalle College. She's going to talk to us about the college essay.
Hi, y'all. So I'm here to talk about the essay, and like she said, I am from LaSalle College. Who has heard of LaSalle College? Okay, cool. So we're just 8 miles west of downtown Boston, so we're located in Newton, Mass. But like many of my colleagues here, I read applications for students down in this area because I actually live just right up the road in Whitman. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about the essay because I think that the college essay is probably one of the most integral parts to your application because it allows you to show the school who you are. Not just your grades, not just the numbers, just who you are as a person. So in regards to the essay, how many of you have started kind of thinking about what you might write about? Anyone? Okay, I see a couple of things going on. Okay, cool. Is anyone excited to write their essay? Okay, yeah. So the essay should, like the college essay, no matter how much you may love or don't like writing, even if you just really detest writing in English, it should be something that excites you because it's your one essay that you have where you get to talk about yourself the whole time, which is really fun. There are, of course, some common like faux pas with the college essay, and that's kind of what I'm going to hit on first. In terms of topics, there may be some schools that give you like selective topics, or you can just use the ones that are on the Common App if you use the Common App, or just go rogue and create your own. However, there are some topics that typically turn out very similar essays. And the main thing that you need to remember with the college essay is that, like I said, it's your chance to show who you are as a person and to show your unique qualities and what sets you apart from the rest of the students that are applying to whatever school. So with the topics, there are, like I said, some topics that can produce very similar essays, and that's because they tend to focus on just like one thing. So for example, one of my favorite topics is write about someone who has influenced you. And what we commonly see if it's like what we would consider a like mediocre essay is that the student would write the entire essay about the person who has influenced them, and we learn nothing about the student, which is great. Like, I love learning about your great aunts and your grandmas and your high school basketball coaches. Like, that's really cool. I get to, you know, kind of catch a glimpse of your life, but I don't really come away knowing anything about you. So typically what I tell students if they do choose prompts like similar to that, writing about someone else or something else, is that they write 1/3 about that person and the rest of the 2/3 about themselves. So that 1/3 would be describing that person, why they have influenced you, these qualities that they have that you really admire, and then the other 2/3 would be how that has like made you progress forward as, you know, a human, like how you have grown from whatever lessons they've taught you. And so just keep in mind just to focus on yourself. The same can be said for essays about your activities. For example, like sports or dancing, we get a lot of essays that are about like how long you've been involved in something and you know, how much you love football and that, you know, winning the big game was the defining moment of your life, but we don't really learn that much about you if you don't kind of give us something about how that sport has made you uniquely you. And so just keep in mind with everything you're doing to make sure to add your little bit of flavor in there, in that it's not just something that would seem generic. I always tell students, this is one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever heard, and it came from a high school counselor actually. I tell students that if your essay did not have a name on it and it was dropped on the ground and left somewhere and someone who knew you found it and picked it up, they would know that that was your essay just because of the content of it. And so it has to reflect you. Also, grammar and spelling. I don't like to focus entirely on that because I think that sometimes students can get too concerned with it, but it is important. So make sure you have it proofread by somebody that you trust. Not just, obviously a teacher is a good choice, or like your friends who are really good at like things like that. Just make sure to have a couple of pairs of eyes kind of look over it, just to make sure that you don't have any obvious spelling errors, because the more and more that there are in your essay, you're gonna start to come off as a little bit like sloppy maybe. And so you really wanna present like the best version of yourself in your essay. And so just making sure that those little bitty tiny mistakes that are easy to fix are corrected kind of really helps set your essay apart. Also, another thing that colleges can be kind of confused about when they're reading your essay is if you write an essay about volunteering, for example, in a hospital, and how much that made you realize that you want to be a nurse, but then you apply to the school as a business major. That can be a little bit confusing. So just think about things like that whenever you are filling out your applications. I wouldn't say that that's like a huge issue, but it can, like, for me, I always reach out to my students if they have essays like that and say, hey, I see you applied as this major. What's going on here? And so I just try to talk to them about that. And so just keep things like that in mind. Every school is going to use the essay in a different way. I think definitely up here, schools take the essay into account with admissions, especially four-year colleges. I used to work for a large state school in the South, and we primarily use the essay for really scholarships and special programs. But if you're applying, especially to schools that have holistic application review, just know that the essay is going to be a big portion of your review process, because like I said, it's going to be what is showing the school who you are and how you're going to contribute, in addition to like what Heather said, your extracurriculars, things like that. So I think that's pretty much everything I had for y'all.
Next, we have Stephen Elias. He's coming from Curry College. He's going to talk about financial aid and scholarships.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Elias, and I'm the Associate Director of Financial Aid at Curry College. Curry is a suburban campus located about 7 miles from downtown Boston. We're in Milton, Massachusetts. I'm going to focus on financial aid, and there are generally two types of financial aid. One is merit-based financial aid, the other is need-based financial aid. And as far as merit-based financial aid goes, a lot of the things that my colleagues on the panel have already spoken to about are considered when a college who offers merit-based financial aid determines if they're going to award a particular student merit-based scholarships or grants. Things like your high school grade point average, your GPA is certainly of primary importance at most schools. Also, if the school is not test optional, things like how well you did on the SAT or ACT exams. We've already heard about the rigor of your high school classes, how difficult they are compared to how difficult they could be. In addition, things like extracurricular activities and leadership opportunities that you've participated in as well. And since you are all high school juniors, you still have plenty of time to impact all of those things and positively impact the amount of merit-based financial aid you may be awarded at the schools that you're going to be applying to. And financial aid is very important because, as we all know, college is a relatively expensive endeavor. It's certainly worthwhile, but no matter what choice you choose, from the community college options that we heard about to the state schools to the private colleges that are represented here as well today, college is going to be expensive, so the more financial aid you have to go against those costs, the better off you and your family are. I do also suggest you have a conversation with your family to make sure that you and your family are on the same page as far as paying for college, so that both you and your family know who's going to be responsible for what, both in school and after school, if you and or your family borrow to help pay for college. From a need-based financial aid perspective, all colleges require the free application for federal student aid, commonly referred to as the FAFSA. And that can be completed anytime after October 1st of your senior year. And we do encourage you to complete the FAFSA as soon as possible, because financial aid is awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. So at some schools, some funding can run out sooner rather than later. Some of the colleges you're applying to may require some other supporting information. Some of the competitive colleges often ask for another form called the College Scholarship Service Profile Form. And you want to check with the financial aid office or the website of each of the schools you're applying to see exactly what's required from those individual schools. Make sure you comply with all of the school's financial aid deadlines. A lot of times you might miss out on financial aid simply by just completing the financial aid applications at a late date. Additionally, during your junior and more likely senior year is one of the best times to apply for outside scholarships. These are scholarships from private sources like community groups, sometimes parents' employers, ethnic or religious organizations, basically things that you're either attached to or maybe something that you have an interest in. Maybe you're going to be a nursing major and you might apply to a scholarship offered through the Massachusetts Nurses Association or something like that. And now your senior year is the best time for you to apply for and qualify for those. There are also some great online college scholarship service search engines, things like fastweb.com, FASTWEB. Also, the College Board, who oversees the SAT, has a great outside scholarship search database as well. And certainly, your high school guidance department is a great clearinghouse, too, for outside scholarships. So you sort of want to plan ahead, and as your guidance counselor spoke about at the beginning of today's presentation, you're going to be doing a lot of these things in concert with the guidance department, but ultimately you are the one who is getting the benefit of attending higher education, so you want to make sure you're as actively involved as you can be and work closely with your family on helping to meet whatever costs you have at whatever college you attend. Good luck.
Next, we have Rhonda German. She's from Southeastern Regional Technical Institute, and she's going to speak on considering a career path.
Thank you. Hi, so I'm not sure how many of you, I'm sure you all have heard of Southeast Regional Vocational High School. It's only about probably 10, 15 minutes away from here. We are the post-secondary school, so we are part of the Southeast Regional School District. However, we are the after high school or adult education programs, and that's what we offer. So I'm going to just touch base a little bit on career paths. So I'm not sure how many of you are thinking that you know that you maybe don't want to go on to a 2-year or 4-year college, but we actually see a lot of seniors and then even then some that are interested in our program. So I just want to go through with you what we offer, and then I'll talk a little bit about what factors to consider in terms of whether it's something that you think you want to pursue. So I actually kind of separate them into 3 different areas. We have healthcare programs that are our day programs, which would be medical assisting, dental assisting, and practical nurse. Then we have our construction-oriented type programs, which would include heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Our newer programs, electricity and plumbing, which train you to go on in to become an apprentice. And then we also have a new program coming actually this year, this fall, advanced manufacturing, which is, it involves precision machine engineering and welding. Okay, so it's all hands-on kind of work. And then in the services, we have cosmetology and culinary arts. So those are all of our programs, and I'm going to say 50% you do classroom work. So there are still studying, there's still tests, there's still curriculum. However, the other 50%, you are hands-on either working in the field or you're in our HVAC, in our electricity area, actually building things and working with your hands. And all of these programs, we prepare you to become certified or licensed in those fields. So when you think about factors to consider, do I want to pursue a career path, you want to think about a couple of things. What kind of learner are you? So do you enjoy being in the classroom and You know, that's a passion of yours, and you can see yourself doing that for 4 years, working towards a major or working towards a career that you need a 2-year or 4-year degree. You know, if you want to get into engineering, or you want to get into teaching, or I'm trying to think of some other fields. I mean, there's so many. Criminal justice. You wouldn't look at a career path at our school. You know, you do need a degree for those things. So that's one thing that you have to think about. What kind of learner are you? Do you like small classes? Do you, you know, are you looking for something where, as I said, you're more of a hands-on learner? You don't want to only be doing the curriculum work. Then that's something else to consider. Financial status is definitely something that you want to think about. Our programs typically average all in between $6,000 and, let's say, $12,000 or $13,000 for nursing. And that's all in books, fees, and includes your license if you successfully graduate, and then you're out working. So do you want to go to school but not for a long period of time, and you want to have something when you get out that you can begin working, let's say, in less than 2 years? That's another factor to consider. The job market. The programs that we have, I can't tell you, we just get calls every week from employers. These trades, these services, there's a huge job market, and so job placement is something that we really pride ourselves on in terms of, we can't guarantee you're going to work right when you graduate, because a lot of it is also up to you and what you pursue and how you handle, you know, your interviewing and everything else that goes along with it. But the options are there, the jobs are there, and we give you everything you need to launch you. And as far as the other thing I guess you need to think about would be, we don't look at SATs or GPA standardized testing. So some of you maybe, you know, that could affect what you decide to do after school. However, we do have an entrance exam, so you will have to pass an entrance exam in order to get accepted into any of the programs, but the requirements for admissions are a little bit different. We will look at your transcript, but we don't look at the GPA necessarily. So you do need to graduate high school, you do need to pass an entrance exam for us, but that's a little bit different than if you were to go on to a 4-year school. And so a few things, I guess, just to remember, even if you, let's say you graduate high school and, you know, whatever you decide to do, maybe in 3-4 years, you are thinking, oh, gee, you know, I really want to get into culinary, or I really want to become an electrician. We see students of all ages, all backgrounds, all situations. You could be just out of high school, you could be you just had maybe you just had children and you're looking to make a career change. Maybe you find yourself unemployed at age 35 or 40. So it is something that you can consider at any point in time, and I think that's also the beauty of what we have to offer. I know some of my colleagues up here had mentioned it before. It's so important to go to open houses, do your research, talk to family members, talk to friends that are in certain careers, and just gather as much information as you can. I know, and I'm sure that the other colleges as well, offer you to sit in on a class or even do a personal tour if you can't make an open house. Because the more questions that you ask, and then the more you're going to find out, you know, if it's going to be the right fit for you. And lastly, I think most important is passion. I mean, you can go anywhere and you can study anything, but if you're not really that interested in it, you're just interested in it, you're kind of doing it because that's what, you know, maybe someone had said, oh, I think you'd be great at it, or you would love that, or you should go to this school or that school. You really have to figure out, you know, what your passion is and what you might, you know, want to study and what you might want to do. Okay, and that does change. I mean, you might think, you know, maybe right now you'd love to do, you want to be a teacher, and then all of a sudden you're into it midway, and no, this isn't what I want. You can always change it, you know, so don't stress about that. But just make sure you gather all the information that you can. So thank you.
And last, we have Drill Sergeant John Washburn. He's from the Army National Guard, and he's going to talk to us about alternatives to college after high school.
Good afternoon, Vikings. You guys ready to get out of here? All right, I won't hold you up too long. We're almost there, I promise. I'm going to stand. I got a lot of energy. All right. All right, so I'd like to introduce me. I'm Drill Sergeant Washburn with the National Guard. I supervise the recruiting team that covers this area. So the National Guard, we're a component of the Army, but we're a part-time service. So that means 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer. You'll join and you'll do your basic combat training with the Army and the Army Reserves. That's 10 weeks long. And then you'll go straight into your job training because you're going to choose a job to do with the National Guard. Your job training can be anywhere from another 5 to 15 weeks, depending on the job you choose. We have a wide variety of job selections. Pretty much any job that you can think of in the regular civilian world, there's a military job that relates directly to that. Some examples are aviation, working with helicopters, engineers, such as carpenters, electricians, plumbers, military police, infantry, transportation, human resources, administrative jobs, IT jobs. We have it all. So it just depends on what you qualify for and what you're interested in. All right, some people are wondering, what's the benefit to joining the National Guard? So I mentioned we're a part-time service, which requires you only to work with us 1 week in a month after your training. So you still have 28 other days of the month to do what you want. Our biggest benefit is the day that you join the National Guard, you can go to any state school in Massachusetts 100% free. So there's 28 different schools in Massachusetts. The popular ones in this area are Massasoit, we have UMass Dartmouth, UMass Boston, Bridgewater down the street. If you're in the National Guard, all those schools are 100% free. Tuition and fees are covered. The only thing we can't cover for you is room and board if you decide to live there. Some other benefits to joining is not only is school going to be free, is you're actually going to get paid to go to college with the GI Bill. So you're going to college, let's say at Massasoit or Bridgewater or Dartmouth or UMass. You're going 100% free, and you're going to get paid $375 a month to be a full-time student. So essentially, it's like a job. You are going to school for free, but you're making money to do it. Not a whole lot of people can offer you that benefit. Other benefits with the National Guard or the military in general is the life experiences you're going to gain through your training and through your time in the service. So I mentioned you're going to go away for boot camp. At boot camp or basic training, you're going to learn a lot of Army values, respect, discipline. It's gonna mold you into an adult moving forward. You're gonna meet a lot of different people. You're gonna have the chance to travel. There's a lot of different opportunities. Also, right now, depending on your qualifications, when you go through the process to join the National Guard, we are offering a $20,000 bonus to sign up. So that's a lot of money you can get up front to start your adulthood and your career moving forward. A lot of people think it's one or the other. You have to join the military, or you can go to college, or you can do 4 years in college and then do military after. But with the National Guard, you can do both at the same time. We're not restricting you or limiting you to one or the other. That's why we offer it 100% free in Massachusetts. And you can also start your career. So who here is thinking about being maybe a police officer or firefighter? There might be a few hands out there. If you want to go into those fields, it's very competitive, and having a military background is going to boost you up on the civil service test, and having that experience under your belt just makes you a stronger candidate as well. I'll wrap this up because I could honestly talk for hours, and I know you guys are itching to leave, and I think we're going to do a question and answers after this. But if you're looking for more information or more details on the process or the difference between the National Guard and the other services, our closest recruiting office is in the Brockton Mall, so feel free to come check us out in Brockton. If you don't like to cross that Brockton line, I don't blame you. No, I'm just kidding. I have business cards on me. Feel free to come up, grab one if you'd like when we're all done here. And there's brochures and business cards in the guidance office. If none of that works out for you, I know you guys all got a smartphone, Google National Guard. My number or one of my partner's numbers will pop up, and we can help you out from there. All right, thank you very much.
So guys, we're here until the bell rings. So you guys are here, so we wanted to leave some time for questions, and then also a few minutes if you wanted to talk to any of the panel members individually. But first of all, let's give them a big round of applause again for an excellent job. And also a big round of applause for Miss Impresha, our guidance intern, who put this whole thing together. So, does anyone have any questions that you'd like to ask? Anything about the college process?
Okay, so I have a question about the UMass system. The GPAs that you gave us, are those weighted or unweighted? Like, yeah, those are weighted GPAs. Okay, so it's like out of like the APs weighted into it.
Another thing the UMass schools do is we recalculate every GPA that comes through. So no matter what your transcript says, it might be a little bit different. So we weight our GPAs, and the way that works is if you take an honors course, for instance, you get an extra 0.5 letter grade bump. So instead of getting a B, if you get a B, we'll give you a B+. But if you took an AP or an IB course or a dual enrollment course, instead of a B, you're going to get an A. So we reweight every single GPA that comes through, and sometimes just reading off of the transcript might not exactly give you the answers you're looking for, but we really do do our best to benefit the students.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have a question for the panel. So when students come down to guidance and they have questions, we try to answer them, but a lot of times we encourage them to reach out to admissions counselors. And I've actually told some students, like, don't have your parents call, reach out yourself. You can call from my office. But in reality, like, what types of questions should they be reaching out to you guys for? And how should they make that connection?
I'm just going to say real quick before passing it to the other panelists, I've spoken a lot. The websites are really useful, so if I were you, I'd definitely check out the websites first. If those don't have the answers, that's when I would say you'd start calling the counselors.
Sure, I would agree with that. I mean, I think there's a base level of research that you can do on your own, and it's important to show that you've taken the initiative to do that. But I think if it's a school that's one of your top choices and you really want to make that connection, I think it can be great to reach out and maybe even give some of that context. I've looked into your whatever program and I'm super excited about it and I'm hoping to learn more, and I just wanted to make that connection with you and let you know how excited I am about the school. And I think, you know, for us admission professionals, if we can sense that excitement from you, then it can help make us more excited about you as an applicant. So I think demonstrating that interest is definitely a great thing to do. But I would agree that taking the reins of this process yourself is really important. You're stepping into your adult life and you're gonna have to be more independent, and so starting that process now is really important. You don't wanna rely just on your parents or your families to do that for you. You really wanna show that you can take ownership of that, and when I see students doing that, it does impress me, and it does make you stand out kind of in my eyes as an applicant, because I see that you're able to demonstrate that level of maturity, and believe it or not, that is going to make you look different from your peers who may not be doing that. So I would agree that's definitely great advice to be sharing.
Do either of y'all want to go? Okay, I'll pass it back down to you. So I think it's going to depend on, like Heather said, you know, if that's one of your top choice schools, you definitely need to be talking to somebody there. I love even when students just like are kind of feeling it out, they don't know what exactly they want to do, when they just reach out and ask some like preliminary questions, just because it kind of starts that conversation between us, and I can kind of dig a little deeper and see what it is that you are looking for and let you know if, you know, we are a good match. Because first and foremost, our job as admissions counselors is not just to get you to the school, it's to make sure that you are going to the right school that is the right fit for you. And what better way to do that than to talk to us. And I always say that there are no dumb questions personally for me, just because I love whenever students talk to me and ask those questions. One of my favorite ones that I ever got, a girl had just been admitted and she texted me and she said, I'm getting ready to pack and I would need to know what I want to pack, and do I need to bring a prom dress? And I was like, okay, girl, we're getting a little excited there. But like she just wanted to know because she was so pumped, and I loved that. So obviously, like, exercise some caution if you think that, you know, something might be taken negatively by the school, but we're humans, and it's our job to talk to you, and we like it, so talk to us.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that it's really your experience at the end of the day. So once you get to that school or that institution, your family is not going to be immediately by your side to get some of these questions answered. So the sooner you can do it, the more comfortable you're going to feel. I had a parent actually last week call me because they were concerned that their student was 6'4" and they were really scared they were going to get stuck on the top bunk bed. So while it's great to hear from the parent, I think we all really appreciate hearing from you guys, because then we have the opportunity to talk to you about, you know, great living conditions, great opportunities to maybe meet someone on our Facebook page for accepted students or through our housing portal where you can indicate your living preferences. I think it just goes a long way, because eventually you do have to advocate for yourself. So when you do arrive on first year move-in day, you might have to be the one to have the conversation with your roommate saying, hey, I really can't take the top bunk, that's not gonna work for me. So the sooner that you can start doing that, the better you're gonna feel, and it will really make for a nice transition to college, because you're not relying on your family to say, hey, I'm really nervous about this, it's keeping me up at night, can you just call the admissions office and see if they have an answer? Try to do that as much for yourself as you can.
I'm just going to add real quick. They all said the same thing, but I actually had a conversation with a student, and they had questions about transferring. And so we sat down and called the UMass system, and I was talking to them and asking them questions. And then the lady asked me, is there a reason why the students aren't asking these questions? So I think they really do look at that. And like she said, definitely advocate for yourself, because now a lot of times you might have your parents asking questions or going to the admissions tours with you and things like that, and that's fine, they can come with you, but really sit down with them and think of questions that you might want to ask. So you're doing that question, asking the question, where a lot of times I will meet with students that have their parents come attend. Parents are asking questions, but I'm looking at the student answering the questions to the student at all times, because it's really the student that's going to be coming here, and I know the parent's not going to be there when they enter school, because again, you want to advocate for yourself. But definitely reach out and ask questions, and don't be shy, because when you get there, your parents aren't going to be there, your friend's mom is not going to be there for you. So definitely start learning how to advocate for yourself now.
Okay, thank you. We have another question back here. I feel like Oprah.
So my question is for the Army National Guard. So say I were to join and like be enlisted and go to college at the same time, are there any commitments that I would have to make after I graduate to the Army National Guard for my service, or?
Yep, good question. So I'm gonna stand again because I can't help it. So when you join, we have two different contracts. We have a 3-year contract and a 6-year contract. So after that contract's done, you know, you're on your own time. The free college is only good while you're in the service, though, or in the National Guard. So if you want to do a 4-year school, you know, you could do a 3-year contract and then add a year to the end of it, get through all 4 years of college, and that way we covered your college for you. You got paid in the meantime, and when you're done at that point. Another thing I wanted to add, I'm glad I got the mic back, is this pertains directly to you guys. We're also the only service that you can join as a junior. If you're 17 with your parents' permission, you can join as a junior. You'll go away this summer for your basic training, your 10 weeks. Then you come back to Massachusetts, do your senior year. After graduation, then you go do that job training. So it's called the split option, and it's only available to high school juniors that are 17 with the parents' permission. So that's another benefit that, you know, is perfect for you guys and girls to take advantage of.
Thank you. Any other questions for the panel? Oh, there's one over here. I like this. I might start a new career.
I have a question about admissions. So when you're looking at like a GPA and SAT scores, if you have like an above average GPA, but like not so good SAT scores or just average, is it really that detrimental when you're like trying to get admitted?
Hello. Okay. I think we can all kind of speak to that, because everyone is every school is going to be different in terms of what they require for GPA, ACT, SAT, all of that. So it depends, first of all, if the school is test optional, which is what I wanted to speak to because LaSalle is test optional, asterisk, except for the education programs, because we do need test scores for if you are planning on being on a licensure track for education. And so for us, if you do want to send in your test scores, even though we are test optional, we do have some students that are like, I feel like that's going to be an accurate representation of me. I want you to see, you know, maybe that I haven't done well in these areas, but I did really well on the test. And so they just want us to kind of see that they can prove themselves. And others are like, nope, I do not want to include that at all. And that's fine. So it's going to depend on if the school is test optional. But for us, we do look a whole lot at the GPA, which is kind of what some of my other colleagues were talking about earlier. Like with progression, like how you've done over time, if your GPA has gotten better or worse, all of that. So yeah, that's kind of like from a test optional standpoint. Bless you.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think the test optional piece is a really important part of this question, because if tests are required, then you have to submit them no matter what. But if you do have the choice on whether or not to submit the scores, I usually recommend to students thinking about your test scores hand in hand with your GPA. And you want to make sure that the scores demonstrate and reflect the same level of academic ability as your GPA does if you're going to submit them, or they should be stronger. You know, if you have the option of sending them or not, you want to make sure that if you do choose to send them, they're definitely going to be a benefit. They're going to add something worthwhile to your application and not take away from it. For some students, the work that you're doing in the classroom on a day-to-day basis is just where you are stronger. And research has shown that your GPA is a better indicator of your ability to be successful in college than your test scores. So if you have the option, then it's completely fine to just let that really strong GPA stand on its own, let your strong curriculum stand out, and not submit the scores. Usually if schools are test optional, then it's not detrimental not to submit your scores. It's fine not to submit them. That's what they're telling you by being optional, is that you do have this choice not to submit. And so I think if you feel really strongly about your GPA, more so than you do about your scores, then it's perfectly fine to, you know, make that decision and go in that direction and not feel any pressure that something's lacking without the scores there. In fact, in most cases, and I can speak for Stonehill, if your scores are weaker than your GPA demonstrates, then it's typically better not to submit them, because it can impact you for both admission as well as merit scholarships. Hope that helps.
Any other?
Oh, sorry, just really quickly, the way the UMass system does it, we look at GPA and SAT scores or ACT scores on a sliding scale. So the higher your GPA is, the lower your SAT scores can be, but there is a caveat because there's obviously a cutoff. With UMass schools and state schools in general, we cannot accept anyone below a 2.0 average. And then I know for Lowell, like the lowest SAT score we'll probably take is around 1100. So really keep that in mind when you're applying. And then it really just also boils down to whatever major you're applying to, because a lot of majors are a lot more selective. So for instance, as much as I say, you know, having a 4.0 and 1100 is great, if you're applying to our nursing program, you're probably not going to get in because of that 1100 SAT score. So you should apply test optional there. So that's when I really advocate for reaching out and speaking to the counselors to figure out kind of exactly where you are, so we can tell you whether or not you should submit. And we'll be pretty blunt about it, about whether or not you should submit your test scores. So it's always better to ask than to just kind of assume on your own.
Sorry, not to drag this on, but one other point I'd recommend is schools that allow for super scoring. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this term, but if you do take your SAT more than one time, some schools, at least at Nichols we do, will take your higher verbal and your higher math score to give you a better overall composite score. So that is an additional option, but keep in mind, you know, you are taking another test, you are paying to take that SAT again unless you have a test waiver. So it's really important to think about, is this really going to be worth it in the long while? And I'd also only recommend maybe taking those SATs a couple of times. You know, you don't want to get so crazy where you're taking them 3, 4, upwards of 4 times, and eventually your score is just gonna kind of be the same, and it's going to be more of a stressor. So I would air that with caution. But if you do take your SAT more than one time, that could be a useful way to kind of get a little boost there for schools that super score. Another thing is interviewing. At Nichols, we're test flexible. So if you have a 3.0 GPA or higher, you can waive them completely. If you're under a 3.0 and you're not comfortable with your test scores, then we do need to see an interview. And sometimes an interview might be a really great way to stand out. Even for schools that are not test flexible, maybe not using that in lieu of test scores, but encourage an interview. That could be one more thing that you do to then maybe talk about your process with standardized testing and why it didn't go the way that you hoped or anticipated.
Any other questions from the audience? I have a question, and just one more question before we wrap up, and it's around some of the intangibles. So when we talk to students, we're like, you know, either through your essay or through other information, there's other things like having a job for 4 years or, you know, doing service activities and stuff. I'm just wondering now that it's a lot more competitive, what activities kind of really stand out and which ones are kind of standard, like that don't really pop out from an admissions standpoint?
Sorry, we keep turning this on and off. Well, a big thing at Nichols that we look for is leadership. So anytime where you've served a position where you led others, maybe it was in the workplace where you had to last minute step up to the plate because all of your colleagues called out, you know, talking about those things in your college essay, that could be really great. Or maybe you are a president of a club, you're doing volunteer work, anything that we see that, you know, that you're doing stuff outside the classroom, you're doing stuff outside your work, you're not going home just to go play video games and go to bed, you're showing a little bit more to your community. That would be something that I think is really important, and absolutely jobs at Nichols were really about career development, and if we see that, you know, you have this personal commitment to maintaining a part-time job for 4 years or for however long you've been employed there, just showing that you're kind of getting ahead would be really big. So definitely yes at Nichols.
No for Massasoit as far as entering Massasoit, but definitely, as she mentioned, going out and transferring to your four-year school, they definitely will look at that, what you've done at Massasoit. And we offer so many different clubs and activities, so many ways you can get leadership roles done at Massasoit. So we don't look at your GPA, we don't look at your SATs. It's a free application, but once you apply, again, your GPA matters. Once you transfer in, because they're looking at it just like if they were looking at a high school transcript, they're looking at your GPA. And obviously, if you have a great GPA, you could still attend, you can do honors courses, you can get into the Phi Theta Kappa, the Honor Society, and then get even more scholarships. And then they'll look at that as well because you took honors classes at Massasoit. And they also look at all of the activities that you've done while attending Massasoit. And again, even though we're a community school, we have a lot going on that you can be a part of. So when you're transferring to the four-year school, they're still looking at that.
I also think just kind of explaining the extracurricular activities you get involved in are important. If you babysit your little brother and you put that there, sometimes we're like, oh, you babysat, like, okay. But if you put like, my parents worked nights and I had to watch after a sibling, that's something we pay a lot more attention to. And if you are putting something down, like I play video games after school, you could say, I'm part of an online community in which we do this, this, and this. I know like I have a lot of friends who play Pokemon Go and they're all part of this community group. I know, it's 2019. But you know, they're all really involved in that activity, so make sure we know about those things and what you do. Don't just say, I was on the soccer team and I've actually seen this, soccer kicked a ball. I understand the inner workings of soccer. Explain where you were on that soccer team and how you were led to that part.
I would echo everything that my colleagues have shared. And I would just say that I always discourage students from doing things just to build a resume. You don't want to do that. That's not really what's meaningful to us. Again, I think going back to a point that I had made earlier, you want to make sure you're doing things for the right reasons because you're passionate about them, you love doing them. And being genuine in that way really allows us to get the best sense of who you are and who you will be when you transition into our community, which is the whole point of this process. Leadership is definitely huge. Service is great. But for you, it might be athletics, it might be theater, it might be music. Just really be true to yourself, I think, when it comes to the extracurricular piece. But make sure that you are involved and engaged in some meaningful way. For me, I think what stands out the most and can really super set you apart is when I see that a student has this really clear passion and kind of goes above and beyond. So maybe you love the environment, you really care about the environment, and not only were you part of an environmental group here, but maybe you founded one and actually started a new initiative and took, you know, the time to really commit yourself to that. I think showing those extra steps, I mean, I've had students who have kind of started their own businesses online and just done these really cool things that I think go an extra step beyond what I typically see. So if that is true of you, or if you have something like that in your life that you feel really strongly about, and there is something you can do to take it to another level, and then convey that to us in the admission process, I think that's a unique way to really make yourself stand out with the extracurricular piece in particular.
Last little addition, we do love an explanation, especially if you do work, you know, pretty much all of the hours that you're out of school before you go to bed. Because some students, they kind of get a little stressed about that, like, oh, I don't have any extracurriculars because I have to work because I need to support XYZ. That's fine, just tell us that. Also, we really love some variety if that's something you can do. So not just athletics, maybe athletics and a little bit of service, or just seeing that you are well-rounded and you don't just put all of your eggs into one basket. That is something that we do take into consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any last minute questions? All right, we're here until the bell rings, but if you wanted to go up and talk to anyone on the panel individually, you can do that.